All right, so howdy ho, everybody. First video I've made for something like this, so be nice to me. Okay, occasionally I get some of these, we'll say golf ball size thunder eggs, sometimes even Mexican nodules and such. And I have a 10-inch, or sorry, I have a 12-inch slab saw, a lower tone slab saw, and uh, can't always get these mounted into a saw and cut them in half well enough, because once you get them clamped in, how are you going to cut, that much? Okay, so they can be very difficult, and people always ask, "Hey, how did you cut that? With your saw?" And how'd you keep it stable in the vise? So after scouring the internet, I ended up finding maybe one or two references to using plaster of Paris and putting them into a box. Now, some people were using old milk cartons because you can just throw them away. And being that they're wax lined, or sprayed on the inside with wax so it doesn't leak out through the cardboard, it was really easy to peel the box away. So I decided, well, I like drinking milk, but not that much. So I started getting small boxes. Let's see, phone boxes. Hey, there's an AT&T box for phone that I bought. Even small boxes that you come across. I'll tell you, the boxes from phones work really nice. And what I did was, now this one's already prepared, but I took some saran wrap and I just line it. Just push it in there, just line it up, line it with some saran wrap, and you'll see why. And then you just figure out, okay, how do I want to orient this in the saw? And, well, okay, if I put it in the bottom, just like so, and I take another one, figure out, okay, how do I want to orient it? Well, here's the bottom of the thunder egg, so carefully place it in there and what you're going to do is put it in such a way so that, you're getting close to half the thunder egg cut through, and sometimes they're a pain in the butt to orient. In the past, I have actually used little pieces of plaster to orient them, a little bit better, and because then you could just stack up little pieces around it, and makes it real easy to cut through. Ooh, excuse me. So I'm gonna say that is about even. This one's gonna give me a pain here because it doesn't want to sit straight. Well, okay. So I got just a small, storage container and a bag. I've got a bag of plaster of Paris here. To scoop it, scoop out as much as you think you're gonna need. And then I got the water. Okay. Just plain tap water. You don't need distilled or anything. Now to mix it, you could do it by hand, but I happen to have a small 12-volt drill. And yes, that is a Mixmaster beater that I put in the chuck of the drill. These I found these at Goodwill, and for like 50 cents or something like that. And yes, they do get, gunked up, or gooped up with dried up plaster, but the nice thing is you can just take a small hammer, knock it out, and You know, you can rearrange these with pliers or sometimes with your fingers, you know, back the way they were, and it'll work just fine. You know, put it in there, and I don't have water in there right now, but you get the point. It does actually work. So, well, okay, let's mix this up. Start off with a little bit of water. I don't measure this out to be precise. I never have. I always thought it would be kind of a because the amount you might have to use doesn't really. I didn't think it would really make too much. It would bother too much, but by measuring or not going by measuring. I usually do make it a little on the runny side, so it's easy to pour around the nodules. I hope you can hear me over the drill. Okay. That should be good consistency. And I hope you can see from the view. Just pour it right in. And since I've already got everything prearranged the way I want it, okay, now like I said, you know, it's nothing really moved. Sometimes you notice a nodule or thunder egg, they will move a little bit. You know, just put your finger in there and you know, move it back the way you want. Now you just gotta wait for it to set up. Now, a lot of these boxes are not lined with, you know, wax lined or anything, you know, sprayed with wax like the milk cartons. So that's why I just use saran wrap. The saran wrap will come off because I will take it out of the box, or basically it's mold, and you just peel the saran wrap off and throw it away. You're not going to recycle, you know, you're not going to reuse it. If you use a lot of it, you know, or if you didn't use too much of it, you know, if it took off a big piece, yeah, you could probably reuse some of it. But I usually don't. I just crumple it up and throw it in the recyclables. So we'll wait on that and wait for it to set up, and then I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll see what happens. Okay, what I should probably tell you is that what I'm working with right now are blue opal thunder eggs. I don't know if you can see some of that opal shining through a little bit there. Camera doesn't there, but well. Okay, well, you get the point. You know, you can kind of see some of that opal. So when I put them in the boxes, some of these irregularly shaped ones, it's kind of like a half nodule, okay? Many of them, because they are partly broken, you know, these are probably, you know, they're pieces almost. What I usually will do, if I know I'm only going to cut just off of this one, maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more, but I will separate my thunder eggs so that I didn't for the video, but on some of these, you know, I will separate them just because they're very similar. You know, they're halves or pieces, and so that when I do put them into boxes, like something like this, okay, if I'm only taking a 1/4 inch or roughly off of this, when I put them in the box, you know, I've got all the same different, you know, the same kind of cut, same or roughly same depth of cut for each one. So when I put them in there, I can orient, and the best part is, you can, when you use this method, is you can orient them in different ways, so that you get, here's a real tiny one, but you can see. Okay, I mean, it's obviously not this one. It's going to get cut in here, but you can orient them in there in staggered ways or whatever to take advantage of the space that you have. Being they're small thunder eggs, you can put them in a box like this that'll fit into your, when you make that cast, it'll fit into the vise real nice. You set it in there so that you're only cutting off, if you have to. I've actually in the past, I've either taken a Sharpie and I've made a line on the plaster just to show this is where you cut. Okay. And stuff like this with these small ones where they're like halves, and I know I'm only going to take just a small part of it. I put them down in there, face down, pour your plaster in there, and which I wish I would have had one set up, but then when the plaster's hardened, all the pieces in there are at the depth. They're going to be cut at the same depth. So all you got to do is, basically remember, and I have done this before where I forgot, how deep I wanted to make the cut into the plaster to get to, to cut the rocks. And I cut either too shallow or not enough. If it's too shallow of a cut, at least I can move I can reorient it, move the vise closer and all that kind of stuff. But, you can make the adjustments. If you take too deep of a cut, well, hopefully you got something that you can still sand and polish. But, it's a process that you do learn, Now, first thing, I'm sure you've probably been thinking, yeah, I want to see his blade get all gummed up and clogged up with all this plaster. And yes, it does. But when it hits the thunder eggs or whatever material that you're doing, and like I said, I've done this with many, even Lake Superior agates that I wanted to cut in half. And I wanted to get that nice smooth cut rather than doing it by hand on a tile saw or little trim saw or something. You can do it that way, but then you get a lot of the little swirly cuts from the blade. And also one of the things that you get, say, with bigger material is you get that little edge, here, just like that. That little, there we go. That little piece that sticks up, and now you got to trim that off anyway. So in this process, it goes through the plaster, or let's say, okay, the blade goes through the plaster. Yes, it gets gummed up. But when it hits these thunder eggs, or whatever kind of rock that you're cutting, it cleans out that blade right away. Now, you're also going to say, yeah, but when you're cutting that material, eventually it still comes up the blade and you got to clean it. Well, yes, you're going to have to clean your blade. Even with this, I have cut through a lot of plaster, and, using this method, it works real nice on this little stuff. And especially, you get some of this stuff you don't want. I know the blade's not going to cut your finger, but sometimes people still, they don't want to, try cutting, and then getting their fingers too close. I still use my tile saw once in a while, my little one, and it's nice, but like I said, you get a lot of grooves because you start moving your thunder egg, or or whatever it is that you're cutting, it moves around, so you get all those nice deep grooves that now you got to try and sand out. And uh and I will show you, uh it's super easy to knock these things out. It's plaster. Take a small hammer, dink 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 dink, and it can, and they'll fall right out. Yeah, sometimes the plaster gets stuck in these, in the on the matrix. I don't have one here, but oh yeah, dental pick. Just pick it out. Okay, and if you got one of those tile or those textile sprayers, spray it. Spray it at the edge uh, of that plaster, and a lot of times it pops right off. So I've never had any rocks that I cut like this where I had to where I still had plaster stuck to it. There's easy ways to pick the stuff off. And I've been doing this for, oh man, 7-8 years, and it's a nice way to cut these little ones. And like I said, if you want that nice, perfect, smooth, or at least that smooth cut where you don't have to go through all the sanding stages, from coarse to super fine and all that. Some people are able to jump right to, say, 220 or even 400 because you get that nice smooth cut, and you don't get the little edge that you gotta knock off with a hammer or trim off with a little saw, and then you risk pushing one way or the other, and then you got it's nice and flat, but then you got that low spot here, okay, or you got an angle because you weren't holding it perfectly vertical, to the blade. This, you don't have to worry about that little piece. And usually, as it's going through the blade, and it gets done cutting the rock, and I'm hoping I can show you that, the cutting process. I got a whole bunch of thunder eggs, so it might be in a different video, but I usually just listen, and when the blade is done cutting through the rocks, I give it a couple, like a minute or so, and as it's going into the plaster, I can stop it, pull it, back it out, and literally like just snap what hasn't been, the plaster that hasn't been cut. And then I got basically two molds with, two plaster molds with thunder eggs on both sides. And then all I got to do then is just clean where I cut. I don't have to clean the whole thunder egg, even though I still do. But and hopefully I can, if I'm any good at making these videos, I can show you, how to safely knock them out with a little hammer. The plaster will break, but it's nice because it breaks away. But I have not yet had any rock break because the plaster broke. Which I'll be able to explain at a different time. But I just wanted to show this is how you kind of get it started. And I'll show you in another video how easy it is to just take them out of here. Well, actually, that one's still wet. I bet you this one I can. Alright, so you just peel that off, and now it is still a little damp, but that's what it sometimes looks like. you know, because the thunder eggs were touching the bottom of the box. And this up here, you won't even have to worry about that, but I'll let this cure up a little bit longer. But now, I don't have a Sharpie, but what I'm going to do is just take a pencil, and I know, okay, I mean, it's pretty square. Guess what? That's going to mount inside my vise, nice and flat. So now I don't have a nodule that's, you know, where I'm trying to, you know, mount it in there, and you know, try and, you know, you're trying to take a round object and put a flat vise to it. Well, that nodule still can wobble. Well, now it's not going to wobble. So, you know, and now it's not going to wobble. At least, you know, and now I can at least orient, you know, I got these in here in such a way that, you know, they're oriented in such a way where I can get a nice, a more precise cut. So what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm just going to eyeball this just for the, you know, for the video, about a 1/4 inch. I mean, you could do it with a scribe or whatever, pencil, pen, whatever, you know, whatever you want. Okay, but I mean, that's going to show me that's where I cut. Okay, so now all I got to do is make sure it's oriented just right in the saw, so that the saw blade is going to be, you know, it's nice and vertical and flat to the saw blade, and then move it back and forth to adjust it so that the blade hits that spot, and then, you know, and then I just let it go. This one needs to cure up a little bit longer, but I guess the video where I was going to show you how it comes out and all that, I guess I don't have to make that right now. So since I showed you how to do it on this one, but this is a lot easier than using wedges and, you know, or balsa wood and gluing. You know, like I said, I'm gonna get emails or comments and stuff, you know, that, oh my God, it's coming up your blade. You know, let me make the video of how it cuts and all that kind of stuff, so that you can see that, yeah, at first going through the plaster, it's gonna gum up the blade. Yes, it's going to. But once it hits the rock, it cleans it out, because now it's cutting through that rock. And yes, cutting through rock over time, you build up, you know, it gums up between the diamond. I get it. You're going to have to clean it. But even using this, like I said, I've been doing this for many years now. And, you know, and I'm still using the same blade, okay, from like 10 years ago. So, you know, the blade, you know, like I said, you still have to clean the blade, you know, like normal. You know, you run a cleaning stick, or, you know, however it is that you clean your blade. But this is not going to hurt your blade. This is, you know, you're not going to have to clean your blade like after every cut, or you know, every time you cut through one of these molds or something like that. Okay, you can cut through probably 10 of these before you even think about it, because once it hits the material that you're cutting, it cleans out all that plaster. Even as the blade is going through there and gets gummed up with the plaster, it still gets cleaned out. And yes, it's going to get gummed up with the material that you're cutting. But like I said, I've gotten really good cuts, nice and smooth. I don't get that little edge that pops up, because, you know, obviously on your larger stuff, larger material, you're not going to use this this process. It's just, I always find it really good for these small, you know, the small ones where I want to get a really nice, at least, you know, near precise cut. And like I said, I use these little pieces that come off, that come off of here. Sometimes orient my rocks inside the box so that once it's in the plaster and the plaster cures, it's not going to move. It's in there, it's stuck, so it's not going to move. So even if you have those little pieces in there, and you could use balsa, like little pieces of balsa wood or something like that, a diamond blade's going to go right through that without even feeling it. So you don't worry about your blade. Okay, like I said, I'm still using mine. Like 7-8 years of using this technique. It works. It's so easy to. I can cut so many rocks and orient them the right any way you want in the box, the way you want them cut, and just making sure that each one is going to be at the same depth. So you don't want something that if you only want to cut it that far in with something that you want to cut that far in, or at that depth. Okay, it's the blade doesn't adjust. Okay, it doesn't go up and down and to adjust. So you got to make sure that when you put your material in something like this, and when you cut it, you're cutting them all at the same depth that you want from each one. And like I said, you could probably put like a little balsa wood underneath one to raise it up just that little bit, or little pieces of plaster to just lift it up a little bit, if you need to. I have done that. It does work. Like I said, the plaster is going to go all the way around, most of this. And even if, like with this one, even if I would have put some little pieces underneath here to kind of push it up, okay, it didn't fill in right here, so it's going to fall out. But even then, the blade's still going to go through. Okay, and once this is cured up a little bit better, I'll cut this one, and because that's one of I am a little, I like to make sure that it's cured up really well, nice and a nice brick, kind of plaster. I get my plaster from Home Depot. It doesn't really cost a lot, and when you think about it, you're not using a lot of plaster, so it goes a long way. It's the old saying, a little bit goes a long way. So I don't remember how much it cost, but you're going to get your money's worth out of it, if you choose to use this technique. Like I said, I've done thunder eggs. I've even done small Laguna nodules, little ones. I've done Lake Superior agates of a few different sizes. And I think that off the top of my head, that's what I can think of. So I'm going to make some videos about how this to show all the way through this technique, if you want to call it that, and I hope to hear from you. And I always like ideas. How are you doing this and that? I want to know how other people are doing stuff, whether I use their ideas or not. It's still, let's face it, it's always nice to know how other people are doing something. Similar to what you are, but how do they go about the process? And you never know, you might just learn something. So, and you never know, you learn something where you can incorporate it into how you are doing it. So until the next video, give me a chance to show you how this works. Hopefully I can condense it into just 2 or 3 videos. And then go to town on me with hate mail or telling me how bad this is or how good it is, and you tried it and you really liked it. So, uh, so until next time, keep collecting rocks and have fun.